within the life of your community. Christ-likeness includes imitating Jesus as our model, but it goes beyond that. A child might initially develop as an artist by copying images with tracing paper. At first, the copies will be obvious, but over time, they might create convincing copies. Eventually, they can leave the tracing paper on the shelf because the practice of imitation developed actual skill and true artistry. As we pursue Jesus, we take out the tracing paper and line by line try to copy Him in our lives. But God is not content with mere copies. The Apostle Paul describes us as God's handiwork, which can be translated as His masterpiece, or even poem, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. God transforms us from mere copyists into the artistry of Christ. Because God isn't interested in minor adjustments, God the Father has our full transformation in mind. Nothing less than the very best version of ourselves, alive and flourishing in Christ. But how are we going to get there? Take a breath. Instill this in your heart. God does not expect us to do this on our own. It does not rest entirely on our shoulders. Christ-likeness for us is Christ in us. The gospel is the good news about everything Jesus has accomplished to save us and all of creation. Everything Jesus has done for us was so that we could be in Him. We get to share in the very life of God. Jesus lives in us and makes us one with Him, much like a husband and wife become one. See John chapter 17, verses 20 through 23, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17, and Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. Our growth in Christlikeness is as simple as spending time with Jesus. We see the glory of God in the face of Christ, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 6. And as we do so, we are steadily transformed into His likeness. It doesn't depend on our strength. The Spirit is at work in us, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18. Christ-likeness is a gift we receive. The pressure is off. Rhythm for life. The Spirit assures our transformation, yet we do not become Christ-like by accident. We can't drift into it. It requires intentionality on our part as we work out our salvation in response to what God initiates in us, Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 and 13. As Dallas Willard, a philosopher and the author of many books on spiritual formation, helpfully says, the path of spiritual growth in the riches of Christ is not a passive one. Grace is not opposed to effort. It is opposed to earning. Effort is action. Earning is attitude. Grace empowers us to put in intentional effort without falling into the unmanageable pressure and unattainable goal of earning God's approval or love. Even though we are not handed a roadmap for this journey with Jesus, we can still create some guidelines to help us stay on course. I have found that a plan for growing in Christlikeness helps, and I am hardly the first to make this discovery. Originating in the monastic tradition in the 5th century, the practice of living by a rule of life has sustained Christians throughout the ages. Essentially, in a rule of life, you identify habits, disciplines, and practices to keep you moving in the direction of Jesus with your community. We have St. Benedict of Nursia to thank for his contribution to this practice. Benedict taught that a rule of life was not meant to be burdensome, but could help us remain in the ineffable sweetness of love. Intentionality sounds pretty good when you put it like that. The practice of crafting a rule of life is hardly exclusive to the monastic life. For example, the Book of Common Prayer, BCP, from the Anglican tradition suggests every Christian man or woman should from time to time frame for themselves a rule of life in accordance with the precepts of the gospel and the faith and order of the Church. Benedict created a communal rule. The BCP invites us to create a personal rule. Personal, that is, but not individualistic. It can help anchor us to the gospel and to the shared practices of our